two well-dressed, polite twin sisters have their tickets in hand and have followed every single rule. But when they try to check in for their flight, they're blocked by an airline employee for no good reason. It's a quiet, humiliating act of discrimination. What the airline doesn't know is that the girl's father is a CEO. And he's about to make a single phone call that will pull the plug on their entire corporate partnership. This is a story about what happens when everyday prejudice collides with extraordinary power. Now, before we go any further, let's be crystal clear. The story you're about to hear is a dramatization. The specific characters, Maya, Mia, and their father, along with the airline and companies mentioned, are fictional. This narrative is inspired by the countless real stories of discrimination that people of color face every day, especially while traveling. We've created this account to explore a powerful message about justice, accountability, and what it takes to fight back. Section 1, The Calm Before the Storm. Our story doesn't start in a chaotic airport, but in the quiet, sun-drenched living room of Maya and Mia Harrison. At 17, the twin sisters were more than just identical, they seemed to share a single, synchronized spirit. Maya was the planner. Her suitcase had been packed for a week, every item folded and accounted for. An aspiring architect, she loved structure and believed in rules as a clear path to get things done. Mia was the artist. Her sketchbook was as vital as her passport, filled with charcoal drawings that captured the world in shades of light and color most people miss. Quiet and observant, she was planning to study fine arts. Though their passions differed, the two were inseparable. They were raised by parents who taught them respect, humility, and self-worth. Their mother, a top cardiologist, was temporarily in another city, helping launch a new pediatric heart wing at a hospital. The girls missed her terribly, and this trip was supposed to be a 2-week reunion before their senior year of high school. Their father, James Harrison, was the CEO of a massive, household-name tech firm, Omnitech. He'd built an empire from scratch, but at home, he was just dad. He was the one who checked their homework and always told them, character is what you do when no one's watching. But it's also how you stand up for yourself when you're being wronged. He was nervous about them traveling alone, but he knew he'd raised strong, capable young women. He booked their tickets on Global Wings Airline, the exclusive carrier for his company's thousands of employees. Omnitech had a multi-million-dollar corporate account with them, a fact that meant nothing to Maya and Mia. To them, Global Wings was just the plane that would take them to their mom. The morning of the flight was buzzing with excitement. They'd laid out their simple, neat outfits the night before and double-checked all their documents. They were, by any measure, the perfect passengers, prepared, polite, and on time. James drove them to the airport himself. As he helped with their bags, he gave them one last piece of advice. "Look out for each other," he said, his voice firm but loving. "Be polite, be respectful, but don't let anyone make you feel small. If you run into any trouble where you know you're in the right, call me immediately. Understand?" "We'll be fine, Dad," Maya said with a confident smile. "We promise," Mia added, hugging him tight. He watched them walk into the terminal, two bright stars stepping into a galaxy of hurried travelers. He had no idea his parting words would soon become a lifeline, triggering a corporate earthquake that would shake an entire airline to its core. Section 2, The Unjust Wall. Inside, the airport was a symphony of controlled chaos. Maya and Mia navigated it easily, found a Global Wings priority line, a small perk of their tickets, and waited their turn. When they reached the counter, they were met by an agent named Brenda. She wore her frustration like a heavy coat, and her smile was a thin, forced line. Her eyes scanned the girls with a dismissive glance before they'd even said a word. "Yes," she clipped. "Good morning," Maya said politely, sliding their passports and boarding passes across the counter. "We're checking 2 bags for flight 734 to Northwood." Brenda flicked through the passports with an audible sigh and typed their names into her computer. A frown creased her forehead. "There seems to be a problem with these tickets," she announced, avoiding their eyes. Maya was confused. A problem? I checked us in online this morning. Everything was confirmed. Well, my system is showing an irregularity, Brenda said, her voice dripping with condescension as she eyed their new suitcases. Are these your bags? Yes, they are, Mia said softly. Brenda tapped her pen on the counter. Sometimes, with third-party corporate accounts, there are complications. Security flags. The words security and complications hung in the air like a veiled accusation. The tickets were booked through their father's corporate portal, just like thousands of others every week. The problem wasn't the tickets, it was something else. I can assure you, the tickets are valid, Maya insisted, her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach. My father's company booked them. Can you please just check us in? Brenda leaned back with a smirk. I'm not saying they're not valid. I'm saying there's an irregularity. And with the high security threat level, we can't be too careful. You'll have to step aside. I'll deal with you after I've processed the other passengers. She waved them away. Humiliation washed over the twins as they were publicly sidelined. Other passengers stared, some with sympathy, others with impatience, assuming the girls were at fault. After the line cleared, they approached the counter again. Ma'am, could you please try again? Mia asked, her voice a whisper. We're going to miss our flight. We're just trying to see our mom. Look, I told you there's a problem, Brenda sighed, exasperated. I need to get my supervisor. She picked up her phone, speaking with theatrical importance. Mark, I need you at priority check-in. Got a situation. Potential ticketing issue. A few minutes later, Mark arrived, carrying himself with an air of rigid self-importance. He didn't even look at the girls at first. What's the issue? He asked Brenda. These two, she said, gesturing with her thumb. Tickets are flagged. Corporate booking. Looks suspicious. Mark finally turned to Maya and Mia, looking them up and down with cold, clinical eyes. It was a look of instant judgment. Passports, he commanded. Maya handed them over. We're going to Northwood to visit our mother, she repeated, her patience wearing thin. The tickets were booked by our father, James Harrison. He's the CEO of Omnitech. His company has a corporate account with Global Wings. She hoped the name would clear things up. It did the opposite. Mark's expression hardened. Right, he said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Everyone's father is a CEO these days. That doesn't change the flag in the system. And for your information, he added, leaning in, raising your voice and dropping names isn't going to help. Maya hadn't raised her voice. Now she was being accused of aggression, a classic tactic to flip the script. I'm not raising my voice, she said, trembling slightly with a mix of anger and fear. I'm trying to understand the problem, and you won't give me a straight answer. The problem, Mark growled, his voice low and intimidating, is that I am the supervisor, and I am responsible for flight security. And based on my discretion, I am not comfortable checking you in. You will not be boarding flight 734. The words hit like a physical blow. Final. Absolute. Unjust. Mia's eyes filled with tears. Maya stood frozen, filled with rage and helplessness. They had done everything right, and for that, they were being denied and humiliated. As Mark turned his back, Maya remembered her father's words, if you run into any trouble, call me immediately. The noise of the airport faded to a dull roar. For a moment, Maya and Mia just stood there, paralyzed by the injustice. Tears streamed down Mia's face. Maya felt a cold fury building, the kind born from utter helplessness. What could two 17-year-old girls do? Arguing more would only get them labeled as aggressive. Causing a scene would only end with security escorting them out. Then, her father's voice echoed in her mind. Call me immediately. She pulled her sister aside, away from the judging stares. "He's going to be so disappointed," Mia whispered. "No," Maya said, her voice finding a new, steely resolve. "He trusted us to call him if we were wronged. And we were." She pulled out her phone and hit the call button, putting it on speaker. She imagined her dad in a high-stakes meeting and felt a pang of guilt. But then he answered. "Maya? Is everything okay?" That's all it took for her composure to crack. "Dad," she started, but her voice broke. Mia leaned in. "Dad, they won't let us on the plane." There was a focused silence on the other end. "Tell me exactly what happened," James Harrison said. The warmth was gone, replaced by a sharp, analytical tone. This was CEO James Harrison now. On his end, he had been at the head of a boardroom table, about to finalize a multi-billion-dollar merger. When his daughter's name flashed on his screen, he'd held up a hand, silencing the room, and stepped into his private office. As he listened to his daughters recount the entire ordeal, Brenda's hostility, the vague security flag, Mark's condescension and accusations, his expression morphed into a cold, controlled fury. His kind, respectful children were being subjected to a textbook case of prejudice. When they finished, he asked, his voice dangerously quiet, "Girls, did you do anything wrong? Did you raise your voice or act disrespectfully?" "No, Dad," Maya said instantly. "We were polite. We were patient." "I knew you were," he said, a hint of raw anger finally breaking through. "Okay. Put me on the phone with this supervisor. Mark. He won't talk to us, Dad." "He walked away," Mia said. "He'll talk to me," James said with chilling certainty. The girls walked back to the counter. Brenda glared at them. "I thought I told you." "Our father wants to speak with the supervisor," Maya announced, holding out the phone. Mark strolled over, annoyed. "What now?" "I've made my decision." He rolled his eyes and took the phone, as if humoring a child. "This is Mark, the flight supervisor." "Who am I speaking with?" "My name is James Harrison," the voice replied, cold as ice. "You're speaking to the man whose daughters you just humiliated and denied boarding. I want one valid security reason for your decision." "Just one." Mark's condescending attitude vanished. "Sir, I can't discuss security matters over the phone. There was an irregularity, and I made a decision based on my professional discretion." "Professional discretion?" James's voice was now a quiet threat. "Let me tell you what my professional discretion is telling me, Mark. My company, Omnitech, spends over $90 million a year with your airline. We're your single largest corporate client in the Western Hemisphere. In about 5 minutes, that number is going to become zero. I am pulling our contract. Every last dollar." Mark's face went pale. He stammered, "Sir, I don't have that authority." "You're right, you don't," James cut him off. "But I do. And before I make that call, I'm going to call your CEO, Robert Chen. We have dinner every quarter. I wonder how he'll feel when I tell him his supervisor, Mark at Gate C-26, decided to practice his own brand of prejudice on my children. I wonder how the media will feel when a memo leaks explaining that Global Wings lost its biggest client because its employees discriminated against 2 teenage girls." The color drained from Mark's face. Brenda looked like she'd seen a ghost. "Now, listen to me very carefully," James continued. "You have 2 options. Option 1. You immediately apologize to my daughters, check their bags, personally escort them through security, and put them in first class on the next flight out. Option 2, you hang up, and I proceed to dismantle your airline's financial stability before your shift even ends. You have 60 seconds. Mark stood there, phone in hand, utterly broken. He was no longer a supervisor in control, he was a man staring into the abyss of his own monumental mistake. He looked at Maya and Mia, and for the first time, he didn't see two suspicious teenagers. He saw the daughters of the most powerful client his airline had. And he saw his career evaporating before his eyes. Section 4, The Dominoes Fall. Mark didn't need the full 60 seconds. "Sir," he stammered into the phone, his voice now trembling and sycophantic. "Sir, there's been a terrible misunderstanding. A glitch. Please, let me fix this. Please, don't make that call." "It's too late for that, Mark," the voice on the other end replied, unmoved. "The call to your CEO is happening regardless. The only thing you can control now is the immediate comfort of my daughters. I suggest you get to it." The line went dead. Mark lowered the phone and turned to Brenda, his face ashen. "Get them checked in. First class. Now." The change was instantaneous and sickening. "Miss Harrison," Brenda cooed, her voice a syrupy sweet melody. "I am so sorry. A terrible computer error. Let me get these bags tagged priority for you right away." Mark was already on his own phone, speaking in hushed, frantic tones. "Yes, sir, a grievous error on my part. Yes, the daughters of James Harrison of Omnitech. Handling it personally." He hung up and turned to the girls, a desperate smile plastered on his face. "Maya, Mia, my most sincere apologies. What happened was unacceptable. Please, allow me to personally escort you." The whiplash was dizzying. Minutes ago, they were a security threat. Now, they were royalty. Mark himself lifted their bags while Brenda printed new boarding passes for seats 1A and 1B. Miles away, James Harrison was already dialing his next number. His promise was not a threat. The phone was answered immediately. "James," said Robert Chen, the CEO of Global Wings Airline. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" "Rob," James said, his voice devoid of warmth. "I'm canceling our corporate contract, effective immediately." Stunned silence. "You're, what?" "James, what's going on? It's a $90 million contract." "And it's gone," James said flatly, before telling him exactly why. He explained what his daughters had endured at the hands of Mark and Brenda. As he spoke, he could practically hear the blood draining from Robert Chen's face. "My God, James," Chen whispered. "I am horrified. This is not who we are. I'll have them fired. I'll call your daughters and apologize." "Oh, you'll do more than that, Rob," James said. "This isn't just about my daughters. It's about every person who doesn't have a $90 million contract to leverage when they're mistreated. It's about the culture you've allowed to fester. This is what it meant to ground the airline. It wasn't a literal FAA order. It was a corporate grounding. By pulling the Omnitech contract, James had ripped a massive hole in Global Wings' revenue stream, sending shockwaves through the company. Chen convened an emergency board meeting. Whispers of the disaster started to leak, and the logistical and financial nightmare began. To everyone on the inside, it felt like their wings had been clipped by a single phone call. Back at the airport, Mark escorted Maya and Mia through a private security line. He carried their bags and drowned them in apologies. The girls were silent, disgusted by the sudden fawning. The respect they were getting now wasn't genuine, it was born of fear. It was respect for their father's power, not for their humanity. And that felt almost as insulting as the discrimination itself. CTA. We're about to get to the stunning resolution and the powerful changes that came from this one awful day. But if you believe discrimination has no place in our world, take a second to hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of justice and accountability. It really helps us share these important messages. Now, let's see how this all ended. Section 5, The Reckoning and the Resolution. The first-class cabin was a world away from the check-in counter, but for Maya and Mia, the luxury felt unsettling. The VIP treatment was a bribe, a clumsy attempt to paint over something ugly. When they landed, their mother was waiting at the gate, a special privilege arranged by a frantic airline official. The moment they saw her, they rushed into her arms, the tears they'd held back finally flowing. But the story was far from over. A passenger who witnessed the check-in confrontation had posted about it on social media. Just watched two polite black teenagers get denied boarding by Global Wings for no reason. Felt like pure prejudice. On its own, the post might have faded. But news was also leaking in financial circles that tech giant Omnitech had abruptly severed its massive contract with the airline. Journalists started digging and connecting the dots. James Harrison made sure they could. He didn't want this swept under the rug, he wanted systemic change. The next morning, Robert Chen, the CEO of Global Wings, flew his private jet to meet James in person. He didn't come to argue. He came to surrender. "James," Chen began, "there are no words. I am so sorry. I've already terminated the 2 employees involved. They will never work for a major airline again if I can help it." James was unmoved. "Firing 2 people is easy, Rob. It's a bandage on a cancer. They are symptoms of a disease in your corporate culture. A culture that empowered them to make that call. What are you going to do about the disease?"